Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the SarRA Show. This is season 3. I'm live from New York City, and what a better way to start than with my dear friend and brother, Devon Bandison. Hi, Devon.
Hey, Sarah.
So good to have you here.
I'm grateful to be here. I'm excited.
Yeah, me too. So you and I met about 4 or 5 years ago, right? It feels like a while.
Yeah.
A lot has shifted. A lot has changed. What's present for you today?
What's present for me right now is just gratitude. Real sense of groundedness, love. When I look at you and your trajectory since we met and all that you've created, I feel a sense of excitement as well. I feel like you're just getting started. And so seeing you live in New York when you decided to come here just brought joy to my spirit. And I want to acknowledge you, for all the work that you've put in to be here. So that's what's present for me right now.
Thank you. Thank you. You've been there for me at a period of my life where there was a lot of confusion. There's a lot of clarity now. Like you mentioned, I'm just getting started. And being the coach that you are, I want to ask you about what it took for you to do the work that you did on yourself to be able to show up the way you do today.
Well, thank you, first of all, for noticing. And, being there for people has been one of the greatest gifts that I've been able to have in this world of both coaching and just being a human out here. And it's, I couldn't have been that space for others if I didn't first be that for myself. So, it took me, 50 years to be an overnight success in many ways. So
That's it?
Yeah, that's it. I mean, some would say, I've been in this profession about 15 years now. And it's been a great trajectory, but like what's got me here is every experience of my life, including, growing up and black father, white mother, came out looking Spanish and asking, at a very early age, like, who am I? And that question of what is it like to be me? And, through the years and teenage years when there was addiction that kind of ravaged my family and my home, that was also in there. There was such a gift of the learning and learning what self-forgiveness was, learning what, judgment would get you. And it really set me onto this exploration of, what is it like to be me and who am I? And as I started exploring that, there was calls throughout my 20s of work that I did with young people and mental health and what they used to call at-risk youth, which probably what they would have called me back in the day. I didn't like that name, so I changed it to At-Hope Youth. And then I started developing programs for, first-time fathers. And all of this was part of my journey and even to the point where I was getting a divorce. And I say that because, there's these different parts of our journey that, at the time people run into and they're like, man, this is hard. This isn't my preference. And, over the years, what I've learned is the most difficult times of our lives have been the greatest gifts because I've learned. And in the beginning, it took a year for me to look back and say, oh, I wouldn't wish that on anyone, but, it was the best thing to happen to me. And what has happened is over the years of experiencing this, when things like that come up, challenges, things that you don't prefer, I no longer wait a year. I can understand in the moment that like I'm going to feel what I feel. There's different parts of us. I don't bypass how I feel. I think the body kind of keeps score in many ways. So you want to honor your body, but also understand that just because you have a thought does not mean it's true. And it's a long way for me to say through all of that, I think that it's allowed me, because I've looked at, some of my deepest, darkest, most difficult times with some compassion, that it's allowed me to show up with love and compassion with others. And I'm by no means a finished product. I feel like I am what you would call the reverse guru, meaning like I'm a big believer that if someone says, hey, come follow me, I got all the answers, you need to run the other way. Because my work is really to point people back to source of where the real answer is right there in their head and their heart and their conscious contact. So long way of saying, thank you. I'm grateful to be there for people, and I could never do that if I'm not there for myself. So, the only difference between a master and a student is the master knows that he or she's always a student.
Always learning.
I always want to learn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You mentioned that. I love what you mentioned around whatever part is showing up in me, I can just be with it and allow it to exist.
Yeah.
And pass through. And it takes a lot of work, I know, because I've been there.
Yeah.
To get to that place where you're aware enough of, okay, this is happening within me right now, and it's okay.
Yeah.
And it can exist while I'm still doing what I'm. It happened to me yesterday. I was dealing with finances, and money is one of those subjects that no matter how much you have of it or you don't have of it, it still freaks you out, right? Yeah. And so I was like, end of month finances, and I noticed I was tense.
Yeah.
And that awareness is everything. To just be like, oh, okay, this is tense, and it's okay that it's tense. Of course, I'm dealing with a sensitive subject.
Yeah.
And it's totally cool, and I'm still gonna do what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And that's self-love. Right?
Self-love. And it's such a great point, SarRA. Like, that's where I say, instead of like self-improvement, what about self-acceptance, right? And for me, I always start with the premises of we are all whole and complete to start with, right? There's no money, there's nothing, no relationship that's going to make us more whole and complete than we are. Now, for me to embrace my wholeness, right, I have to understand that even though there's a oneness, within me there's these parts that show up, right? Like anger or, you say money, right? I always say money could be a mood changer for people, right? They they're all good, and then they look at the statement at the end of the month and it's different, right? Now, I think that what a lot of people do is, and it's not good, bad, right, or wrong, it just really keeps these feelings and these, this is how people can get sick in the body, is like they don't honor the different parts of them that show up, whether it's joy or anger or fear or sadness, and they start developing preferences. Oh, it's only good if I'm happy or joyful. And so what happens is we spiritually bypass these feelings that are just part of being human. And how I liken it is like, say you have this thing around, this tenseness around money. What most people do that aren't looking at themselves or doing the work is they'll try to bypass it. They'll do something, or they'll go outside of themselves and try to cover it up. But it's like almost like having a hose, like just crinkled up, when that energy is meant to just move through you. So if I could sit with it, oh, I'm feeling tense. Oh, you know what? I'm feeling real angry right now. I'm not judging the anger. Where is it sitting in me? Can I breathe into it? When I breathe into that, my capacity opens. And I could go out there and, I'm joyful when I relate to people. I'm not, just because I feel a way doesn't mean I need to be a way. And a lot of times people think because I feel angry, I got to be angry. But that doesn't mean you bypass it. It means you acknowledge it, and you almost treat them like a backseat driver. Like, hey, you come in the car with me, but I'm not giving you the keys. And so I think that it's such a great point that you have these different parts that show up, and it's part of the human experience. And it's so important to just identify them, acknowledge them, observe them. And when you become the observer, they no longer run you. And there's a sense of authenticity that comes. Because I always say, like, the only people who are truly authentic are people who are authentic about being inauthentic.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Right? Because it's like, you know, I remember I used to date a woman back in the day, and she said, "Baby, I'll never lie." I said, "Baby, you're lying right now," right? because like there's parts of us that show up maybe as inauthentic. And the moment you say, "Hey, man, I was inauthentic. That wasn't true," right? Now you're actually being authentic.
Right.
And these are the parts that people don't want to, they want to show their best. Everybody's out here to look good rather than to be whole and complete and be connected. And that's when I feel the most connection with people, when there's a groundedness in that authenticity.
Yeah. And that's also okay, like you said, to be authentic about your inauthenticity, like bringing lightness to it. Oh, yeah, I did lie. Or, yeah, I was an asshole. Or, yeah. I was jealous. Or, yeah, you know. So if you can own it and admit it, first of all, nobody has power over you if you own it and admit it. And you move on.
Yeah.
But if you make it so wrong and so bad, you get stuck.
You get stuck.
Yeah.
It's the ego, the preference. I prefer this over that.
Yeah.
Like, I prefer you just being this way rather than you just being what you are right now.
Right.
Like, if you're upset right now, can I be with your upsetness? And, you know, I work a lot on rewiring thoughts, and yet we also have to pay attention to our body, you know? And, you know, my wife is great at this. Like, she's natural and, like, where is it sitting in her body, right? And with the feeling that comes and emerges. And that's the beauty of, you know, just being a student and a teacher, because, you know, I learn every day from everyone, and especially my wife and my kids and the people I get to serve. So, you know, it's mind, body, spirit. You know, there's an alignment that occurs that gives you a way of being that people can feel.
Do you think there's a difference between men and women and how we relate to, like, the mind or the body? Or I feel, you know, me as a woman, it's not easy. It's become easier to drop in my body and sense and feel. Do you think there are differences there between men and women?
I don't want to have like a blanket generalization of differences. I think that I will say that there are differences because I think that men have more practice in one way and women in the other. Like, my wife naturally just can drop into her body and feel where it's coming up. And, you know, that came secondary to me to, like, thought, right? Of rewiring thought. Thought turns to, you know, emotion, turn to behavior, turn to results. And yet, you know, having both and seeing both, you know, I think it's important to see the understanding and the power of both, right? The mind, but also not believing thought, you know, being the observer of your thought, and then, you know, really listening to, you know, what your body is telling you too, because it's a beautiful gift to be able to tap into that.
To do both.
Yeah, to do both.
I've been working on, you know, we each have the feminine and the masculine side of us.
Yeah.
And I've been working on, because during my journey, I've gone masculine, like work hard, do things, blah, blah, blah. And then I've gone very feminine, soft, just like very flowy, no structure, not much happening in terms of discipline, things like that. And then in the merging of both, what happened was like a fight between the two. So for me, it was like one would take over and the other one would just disappear.
Yeah.
Right. So I've been working in this union of the two. And, you know, I feel like the feminine is like, don't suffocate me, let me be, leave me alone. right? And the masculine is like, but I need to protect you, and it's logic, and if we do this, then it's gonna happen. And
Yeah.
so I feel them both inside of me.
Yeah.
And you know, I think the union between the two is beautiful internally when they both working together, you know. But when only one is steering the wheel, it drifts to maybe a dangerous area.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Is it something similar for you as a man?
Yeah, I think that when it's naturally meant to flow, yin yang, like the number 8, right? It's like the 8th letter of the alphabet is H, he, her, right? He, her, man, woman. And on the side is that infinity, that flow. So the masculine and feminine, you know, I think that both need to be honored in the space. You know, like when I'm very logical. My wife calls me Airport D. When I get to the airport, you know, she used to just chill and be like, yeah, you know, taking our time. I travel a lot. I want to get to the airport at a certain time. So she understands that, like, that probably is going to run the show there, right? And yet there's other times where her softness and her nurturing spirit brings something to the relationship. And I'm talking externally now, right? And then I'll bring it internally, where there's this beautiful dance of masculine and feminine. And seeing that in the external relationship also reminds me of internally how that happens. There's time for me where thought, logic, you know, some planning could be helpful. And yet there's other times where, you know, dropping into being soft, you know, my softness, it's the thing that lights my wife up the most, right? Like, I'm a real talk New Yorker. I speak straight. But like when I'm soft, I could just see the whole energy, you know, soften up. And so I think that where you're at of this, you know, I did this so well, the masculine, and now I'm relaxing in the feminine. And now when I first try to merge it, it feels like conflict. And the key for me is, instead of running from the conflict, like we said earlier, it's like, can I be with the conflict and see where that's happening and love that and dance with that? And then it becomes a beautiful dance, because from my experience, the divine feminine is never satisfied. Like, she always wants more, right? Inside of us and out there in the world. It's like, and the man could get to a point, or the masculine could get to a point, it'd be like, what do you mean? I did everything. You know, and when you can laugh and see that and dance together with it, it becomes like a fun dance. Yeah.
Are you saying it's never enough for us women?
I mean, think of the ocean, right? It's like you get these beautiful waves, and it's like, but it's never like the perfect wave. Like,
it never stops.
It never stops.
The wave never stops.
And I love that. Like, to me, that is the beauty of life. That's the flow of life. Like, why would I want it any different than that? And the only, you know, one of my teachers used to be Byron Kaye, and she's like, you know how I know this is supposed to happen? And I say, how? And she said, because it is. And anytime you're fighting what is flow, like, you're going to be suffering.
Yeah.
So, you know, when we come up against that conflict or whatever it is, it's like, can I love what is? I don't bypass how I'm feeling. I'm feeling it. I let it. And then eventually you find a dance with it. And the dance is, to me, what life is about.
That's beautiful and very interesting, especially when you talk about the waves, you know, the which ends up freaking out the masculine. Like, what is it? Is it like too much or not enough? You said not enough. Is it too much? Is it ever going to stop? Because it's not going to stop regardless.
Right.
So how do you deal with that?
Yeah. No, you know, and how I deal with it is, one, not resist it, not try to change it, and say, like, how can I love this? Love what is. And what that does is you start seeing in that beautiful yin-yang energy, and that never enoughness, is that it always calls me to a higher way of being and how I'm showing up. And all it is a mirror of like, who do I need to be here? And that's fun. So it used to, without the inner work, you can never see that outside. Like, it used to be told, like, if you want to show me how spiritual you are, invite me to your family barbecue. Let me see how you, interact with your family and your wife or your husband. And, to me, if these are the people you're spending most of your time with, like, they have a tendency to bring up whatever is in you, right? And so do you save that for the outside world, or are you being that here in such a beautiful, powerful way that the overflow goes in the world? And I'd rather love and dance with my family so much that the overflow of that love is felt when I go out in the world. And so I don't have to be something else there than I'm here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's true. I mean, at least it was for me that, doing all the inner work and then being part of a family or community that doesn't.
Yeah.
Right? So you get tested.
Yeah.
Especially if you live far. Like, I live far from my family. And so I can do all the inner work I can here. Then the minute I go back, that's where the test comes in.
Yeah.
Right? And then for me, at first, it was judgment. Like, it's not fair. I do all this inner work and you just stay the way you are.
Right.
Yeah. And I have to deal with it. Why me? So I'm curious as to, there's a lot of acceptance around that, and we spoke about acceptance before we got started.
Yeah.
And there's also a lot of not assuming, and there's a lot of loving them however they are, right? Yeah. Loving people where they are and who they are, and accepting them wherever they are. I think Byron Katie talks about that a lot as well. That's hard.
Very hard. And it's only, anything is going to be hard until, the issue's never the issue. It's how I relate to it. So I need to change how I relate to the issue, right? So my dad, great example, right? There was a lot of drug addiction. There was a lot of judgment. There's a lot of abandonment, this and that. And I remember going to a Met game. I remember, I brought him to a Met game, and we were I brought him good seats, because I'm doing pretty well at this point. We're in the front row. Those seats where they bring and they take sushi orders, not where you go and get like hot dogs. So, I'm realizing at this moment that like, my dad never really acknowledged me. And part of me, the ego was running the show. Like, I want him to acknowledge me, right? And I get to the game, and, at some point I'm waiting for this moment that's going to happen. And he looks at me like sarcastically, and he goes, "Good to have you back." And I'm looking like, in my head now, just because I've done some work doesn't mean judgment doesn't come. I'm like, "Good to have you back. You never brought me to a game." Like, and now I'm ready to like really assassinate him, like with my words. And, when I get connected to my, with spirit, my God of my understanding, higher self, it's always from like, Mozart used to say, music isn't in the notes, music is in the space between the notes. Because if music was note after note, it'd be noise. So in life, when I'm connected to source, right, it's always in the space between the notes. So all this chat is going on in my mind. And then all of a sudden, like, I'm going to say this thing to my dad, there was a space between the notes. And when I listened, it said, that's just his way of saying thank you. I was able to drop the judgment and enjoy the game with him. And my dad is not going to go to one of my events. He's not going to read no books I give him, right? He's not going to do any of that. And we had an interesting history, but then I watch how he is with his grandkids, right? And me wanting him to change is my suffering. And, who am I to say how he's living his life is not what he feels is what dignified look like. And when I can accept that, I can have, that doesn't mean if I'm not there, I'm not going to help him. But like a lot of people develop this kind of spiritual arrogance. You know, like I've done this work, so somehow I'm better than you. But like, that's not what this is about. Like the work that I do, the work that we do for me is like to be more connected to people, no matter if they ever read, if they ever go to, you know, like that's their journey. And one of my assignments on this planet is to love as many people as I can before I die. And that doesn't mean just love the people who are doing what I think they should do. And I think that allowance, I think it's probably one of my gifts is like I do feel like people come around me, there's a tendency to really feel comfortable, safe, and loved without judgment. And, you know, that didn't come overnight.
Yeah. That takes a lot of work, years and years of work for sure.
Yeah.
You mentioned, you know, you're always a student and you're always working on things. I'm curious as to what are you working on right now?
Just like spiritually, internally, like
yeah,
the
like
kind of work.
what's showing up for like you know, for me, like creating this union right now. I'm curious as to like what's showing up for you right now that's asking for your attention.
Yeah, it's good, great question. You know, one of the greatest things that I've realized was like this whole thing is the meditation. Like me walking through New York today, being present, off the cushion is my life's meditation. And so, like, for instance, I got off the train, I had music in, and I have this, you know, I got a New York bop. I get off the train, and there's either a policeman or a guard, big man, who looks at me and just smiles. It's like he knew me. I don't know, maybe I knew him, maybe I didn't know him. And I was like, hey, man. It's like, what's up? Best day of my life. And I give him a pound. And then I'm watching, as I'm walking to this interview, and I'm just looking, how many people can I just meet and then feel my heart? And the number was 13. 13 people smiled on the time I got off the train to here by me just making eye contact with them. And so that's what I'm working on now, like being here now, right? Because I could tell you all the great stuff we're creating and all that, and you know, the events and the people I work with, that's beautiful. And yet, if I can't be here now with you on the walk, then what's the work really for? To look good? Like, so to me, this work is continuous. It's this is what I'm working on. I'm with SarRA right now. And, you know, part of that is when I'm home with the family, when I'm with a client, I'm really checking in. Great question that I've really developed recently was like just asking, like, what is it like to be you right now? Just asking myself. And it's like, wow, just blessed, present, feeling like a little kid right now, a little joyful, ready to like dance or something, you know? And developing that spiritual muscle of being here now is the greatest work I think I could do. Because all the rest, when I'm present, when I work with pro athletes, I always ask them, what does it mean to be in the zone? You know what they don't say? I was thinking about step 2. I was stressed. I was busy. You know what they always say, no matter what sport? The game came easy and the game slowed down. Now,
that's like being in the flow.
It's flow. In life, we call it flow. In sports, we call it the zone. So what are they saying? Like a basketball player telling me, Devon, the game slowed down, or a baseball player saying the baseball looked this big. The game didn't physically slow down. But what they're talking about is they were so present that they saw things that everybody else was in their head couldn't see. They heard things that people who are all up couldn't hear. And so, you know, we've been told get in flow, get in the zone. But what we don't realize is the zone and the flow is actually our natural state. But we've been educated to be out of it so much. We're so distracted here and there that we realize that it's not like some mystery. Being in flow in the zone is when you could truly return to here, now, present here, now.
And I feel like the more you think about that, the more you actually left the here now.
That's right. That's right.
Right?
Yeah.
It's kind of, I don't know, for me, I can't even explain it. It's an experience that you get to by so many hours of meditation or just slowing down or doing the work.
Yep.
You reach a point where you're experiencing it and you're like, oh.
Right. That's it.
You recognize it immediately.
That's right.
There's no word that can describe it, really.
And you don't think your way into it, like you said.
No, you can't.
It's a way, it's almost like a remembering, and it's a settling into.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the minute you're thinking about it, you've left it already.
Left it. That's right.
You can't be there and think about it.
That's right.
And yeah, it's to be in that place constantly. You know, I get it too. It's a beautiful place to be, but it's not. I don't know that we can be there all the time.
No, and that's the beautiful thing about life, right? This thing's like a mountain with no top, you know. And I always tell, don't graduate. Like, people graduate, that's when they get in all the trouble. They think they've arrived, right? So for me, I'm grateful when I'm like not present or I'm in the stands of life, because it's a reminder, right?
Yeah.
It's a reminder, a remembrance of, you know, remember who you are, right? And remember what is. And so that's the beautiful part. Most people feel like, oh, I've created this sense of stillness or presence or enlightenment. And then once they're not that, they end up getting in their head and judging it instead of just being with it. It's all good.
Yeah. What triggers you?
What triggers me? What triggers me, I would say right now what's coming to mind is people who are unkind to people who they feel is weaker than them. Like people who pick on people who may not have their own voice, whether that's, you know, we see that in different realms in life right now.
Right.
And the moment something triggers me, it allows me to look at where is that, like, what is that bringing up in me? And can I be with that feeling instead of like being reactive? Like, can I just be with it and see where that brings me?
Right.
And that's always the inquiry.
Yeah, definitely.
What triggers you?
What triggers me right now? You know, injustice.
Yeah.
It's a tough one. And learning to be with it and not fight it.
Yeah.
Has been a work in progress.
Yeah.
For sure, but not bypass it either.
Yeah.
Because, you know, injustice creates anger, and then anger, you know, you can go down a road that doesn't serve the purpose. You know, Mother Teresa said, I'll go to any protest that's for peace, but I would not go to a protest that's anti-war.
Nothing anti, yeah.
Yeah. And being, like, when I was able to tap into that place that's not anti, but, because I lived younger, I lived a part of my life that I did a lot of things out of despite, like against, I'm doing it against.
Yeah.
Or I'm doing what I don't, more of not what I want, but looking at what I don't want, like process of elimination.
Yeah.
So I rewired and learned to look at, not be against, but look at what I want. You know, because against doesn't mean it's what I want.
Yeah.
And that distinction was very powerful.
Yeah.
For me. And so I feel like when there's injustice, it creates that.
Yeah.
And but not getting lured into it and looking at what can be created from a place of
Yeah.
peace is so much more powerful.
Yeah, and for me, it's like, am I going to be a creator in this or a reactor to it? Like, because me, when I was young, like, I want to honor the inner activist in me, right? So the inner activist in me wants to, like, really let that anger come out and shine. There's nothing wrong with it, right? So I want to see where that injustice for me, what does it bring up in me, and not bypass it. And then when I allow it in the car with me, but don't let it drive, then I have a choice. And, you know, over the last few years, there's been a lot of separation, division in different ways of life, especially here. And I've had some of the most meaningful, powerful conversations, understanding that, first of all, you know, someone says something, does something. It's not a war until I get defensive. So defense is actually the first act of war. Right? So, you know, you step on my shoe, you've only stepped on my shoe. But the moment now I want to hit you because you stepped, now we got a war. So I understand that you have a point of view that I don't need to agree with or even like. But when I don't get defensive in that point of view and I honor whatever that brings up in me, there's this point of awareness where I can actually create anything I want. And I've had conversations. I had an Uber driver who had certain kind of garb on that identified, you know, what he believed in and who he followed. And I remember getting in this Uber ride, and he was, you know, he was one of those who, like, would say these things and wanting to trigger me, right? Like, he thought he was going to get it. And I just listened. I'd listen. And then I said, oh, I hear you. I could see how I could see that point of view. I don't have to agree with it, but I could see what you're saying. And then I'd, like, mess with him a little. I said, man, but sometimes, like, does it feel like you're in a cult or something? Like, you know, and he'd laugh, and he wouldn't laugh at first, and then he'd laugh. And we end up having, I'll never forget, he had this 4x4. He was dropping me at the airport in Arizona. And at the end of the ride, we talked, like, you know, by the end of the ride, this guy was like, thought he was so against me, gets out and says, can I give you a hug? It's big. I said, of course. So I give him a hug, and dude starts crying. I said, he was like, I just want to thank you. I've never felt like anyone listened to me before. And the way you listen to me has me thinking, like, I hear your point of view too. And so without defensiveness, it allows sometimes a space for something new and new possibility. But so many people are on, like, to your point, their againstness, that it's againstness versus againstness. And people don't know there's a middle of, like, I don't have to agree or even like this, but, like, my job is, how am I going to bring something to transform this? Not by shaming and beating someone down, like, because it's just, you know, no one wins. So that's what I found, like, that's the dance we're talking about. How can I, and sometimes that dance is, I ain't got time for this right now, right? Like that doesn't mean, like, there's certain things where there's boundaries is also totally appropriate. You know?
Maybe you're just not in the mood.
I'm not in the mood.
Yeah.
And can I honor that part of me of, like, I'm not in the mood. My daughter used to say, ain't nobody got time for this, right? Like, so can I honor that part of me? There's all these parts that if we allow, we could actually experience the wholeness of life. And that's what I'm feeling up to now. That's what most excites me.
I feel like then the minute you honor it, it relaxes.
That's it.
You're not fighting it, right? You're not going against it. You're like, yeah, I see you. It's cool that you're here. It's all right.
Yeah.
Which reminds me, you used to say, I think you still say, like, I don't have time for coffee.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
You still do. You still don't have time for coffee?
You know, now look, I love coffee.
You know, when I moved here, I was like, I would love to see Devon, but he always says he doesn't have time for coffee. So you know what? No.
Well, anyone looking who got some good coffee, I take good coffee recommendations. I love coffee. You know what it is? Really, I work with people. A lot of people say they have time management issues. Whenever people say they have time management issues, I challenge them and say, you don't have a time management issue. You have a people-pleasing issue. Most people with a time management issue has a people pleasing issue, meaning they're saying yes to the things that are less important at the expense of the things that are more important, right? So Warren Buffett, one of my favorite quotes by Warren Buffett, he used to say, "Busy is the new stupid," right? And he said, well, he reads 8 hours a day and then does a couple things and then creates what he creates, right? Mm-hmm. He says no 90% of the time. Now, so what that means for me is I love coffee, but I know that I have cornerstones. Like my assignment is, love as many people that I can before I die, travel and serve people. This starts with my family. Number 2 is travel and serve people through this work. And 3 is, when it's all said and done, they're going to say I used every bit of love and talent I had on the court. I'm not saving it. So what happens is, my family, this work are my priorities. I know that I have an assignment out here. So when I travel a lot and a bunch of people always ask, can we get coffee? It's not personal against them or the coffee. I love coffee. It's that it's like it's not my highest form of service to be sitting with someone maybe for some coffee. And if I say yes to that, then I need to say no to something else that may be a higher priority. So I'm okay saying no. And my no is just as powerful as my yes.
You mentioned something earlier. I think we hadn't started recording yet about I don't need to explain my no.
Yeah, that's the other thing. It's like some people think no's bad because they want to look good and they want to no is a complete sentence. And if I just look at the word no or the word yes, they're both just as powerful as the other. So as you know, I don't do podcasts. It's like coffee. I hardly ever do podcasts. And when I first came on the scene years ago, I was on everything, right? I was on Good Morning America. I was on the news channels, the podcast. I did it all. And then there was a certain point in my career where I was like, this isn't my highest level of service. I'm going to take a break. So I started saying no to podcasts. And about 3 years ago, a friend of mine, he brought me to his community. He has a lot of 10 million followers or whatever it is, my man Evan. And he interviewed me. And then after the interview, he said, Devon, can I share it? And I said, of course you could share it. And he shared it and it went viral. A lot of people saw it. So when that went viral, there's this guy from London who's been asking me for a long time to be on his podcast. He sees this viral thing I'm on. He says, Devon, I'm excited. You're doing podcasts again. And he reaches out and he says, he sends me a message. Hey, can you come on my podcast? And I lovingly said, you can count on me that I won't be coming on your podcast. No. And then he sent the message and said, can you explain your no? And I said, you can count on me. I won't be explaining my no. Because if I said yes, I wouldn't need to explain. So why would I need to explain my no? And the distinction that I use is invitation versus obligation. If you invite me to something, I can say yes or no. But if my no changes how you feel about me, it was never an invitation. It was an obligation.
That's right.
I don't do obligations. So if my no changes how you feel about me, that's an obligation. I don't do that. I only do invitations. Just like I invite people. You can say yes, no, or counter offer to me. And that's it.
I love that distinction, invitation versus obligation. And, Steve Chandler has a lot of distinctions like that, like agreement versus expectations and so on. What are some of your favorite distinctions?
Invitation versus obligation. Obviously, the OG Steve Chandler is my guy. I think expectations versus agreements, one of the most powerful distinctions out there. I have a distinction called the flimsy little door distinction.
Okay.
And it's a long story about this pro athlete, I went to work with, and I was at a friend's house, and I was asked to wake him up to come to a thing. And I was like, oh, I don't want to wake him up, right? And I'm the go-to mind coach in the NBA. I know that I can help this guy, and I'm letting this flimsy little door, I don't want to wake him up, get in the way of who I say I am. So the distinction basically is, where in your life, whether real or imagined, are you allowing a flimsy little door get in the way of who you say you are and what you do? Because if you say you're this, right, and you say you do this, I help people, I serve people, where are you letting a flimsy door? Whether it's real, like somebody saying no to you, or imagined, right, something in your, some limiting belief get in the way of that. So I have a no flimsy door policy. And part of that is reported world versus created world. You know that one?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but
Right.
please
So
explain.
I worked with a guy who ran, I love this guy, Mark. He runs Univision. He runs the LA office, and I made a mistake once and called it Telemundo. And he was like, this ain't Telemundo, this is Univision, right? Like, it's like, almost like being from Queens or Brooklyn, right? So he has a lot of reporters. They go out and they do the news. And in this world in which we live in, that's all we hear is reports. You know how many people report the news or the weather, and the weather's not right? Remember how many people reported Y2K, year 2000, everything's coming to an end, and everybody bought milk and cereal and
Just last weekend for the
same thing.
All the stores were empty.
All the stores are
It was
empty.
the end of
'Cause
the world.
It's
a
the end
week
of the
ago.
world, and and you realize they're just reports.
Yeah.
And so most people believe reports. It's like, I remember a guy named Al Roker. You probably don't know him. He's from New York. He used to be big. He used to do the weather. I felt like he always got the weather right. Then he lost some weight. Something happened when he lost weight. He didn't get the weather right.
Seriously?
It's not a real theory. It's kind of like my theory about Luther Vandross, who was a great singer. I like Big Luther. When Luther lost some weight, he didn't sing the same. But anyway, that's a whole. Anyway,
Is it true though?
I don't think it's true. It's just a silly theory. However, Al Roker used to do the weather. He reported. So reported world is like this. I was coming back from Scotland. We have a place in Scotland during the times, when they were taking tests of COVID to get back in America. And in the NHS, is the National Health Service over there, they are very trusting, way more trusting than New York. When you went to Scotland, you only had to take a home test and upload it 3 times while you were there. I was like, this is very trusting. So you'd upload it. So I took it on day 8. I was leaving day 9. To get back in America, they said you needed a test within 24 hours. So I'm going from Edinburgh to Arizona to do some work. And I get to the airlines, and they say, Mr. Bandison, we got you going through Chicago. Now, is that a reported world or created world? Reported. Because I wasn't going to Chicago.
Yeah.
Now, the key to this distinction is most people, when they hear something that they don't agree with or a report, they start arguing with it. No, and I said, so the key to this distinction is to acknowledge the report. So I say, I hear you got me going to Chicago. This is fun. I'm actually planning on going to Arizona, but he got me going to Chicago. What can we do here? So then he looks and says, oh, Mr. Bandison, I see they canceled the second part of your flight. Now, most people would take that report and trust it. Reported world. What's the key? Acknowledge it. Oh, I hear that they canceled my flight. This is even more fun. Let me tell you, when I get to Arizona, I'm creating some miracles in people's lives. You're going to be part of this story now because we're going to create something fun. I said, what can we do? He says, well, Mr. Bandison, there's nothing really we could do. He said, I can get you to Chicago, but there's only a 1-hour layover, and you got to go through customs. You're not going to make it. Reported or created? Reported.
Yeah.
So what do? Acknowledge. I hear that it's only 1 hour. I won't get through customs. I appreciate you really caring about me like this. I'm going to create it. Get me to Chicago, and I'll take care of it. He says, no problem, Mr. Bandison, you're on. So then I give him the COVID, like the NHS tests, and he goes, oh, Mr. Bandison, America doesn't take this test. I'm like, what? This is the National Health Service. But I didn't say that. I acknowledged the report. I said, oh, this is getting even more fun. So what's my options? He said, you have to go outside of this building. I got about 20 minutes till I board this building and go get the test. So I go outside, and the line is all around the building. So I come back, I say, what else? What are the other options? I said, listen, it's my wife next to me. She was staying in Scotland. And then I said, so he brought a supervisor in, and she says, well, what's going on? He says, well, Mr. Bandison, we can't let you go to America. You don't have the test. And now my wife knows this distinction says, well, can we get him to London? He doesn't need to get a test to London. Can he go to London and then take the test and then go from there? And the supervisor says, sorry, Mrs. Bandison, like, we can't just on his word put him on a plane knowing he's going there, reported or created.
Reporting.
So I acknowledged the report. I said, I hear that sounds fun, but let me tell you what we're doing. I'm going to get to the airport. I'm going to take it. Not only that, when I get to Arizona, I'm going to take a picture of the people I'm working with. I'm going to send it to you. We're going to have a fun. Now she's in this creation. She's having fun. And she goes to the guy who's, doing my ticket and says, how much time does he have until the gate closes? She says, 13 minutes. And the supervisor says, Mr. Bandison, I'm going to do something I never did. We're going to let you get on that plane, but you have to give me your word that you're going to get. You got my word.
In London.
In London. So I get on the plane. I go to London. I go back to now American Airlines. It was going to British Airways. I go to American Airlines. Hey, I take the test. They canceled the second part of my flight. The American Airlines lady says, Mr. Bandison, they didn't cancel, which shows it was a report in the first place. It wasn't even true. So now she's trying for 45 minutes to get me back on the original flight. She can't. So she says, Mr. Bandison, you have to go to British Airways. I said, but I hear I got to go to British Airways. Can you come out of your pod and walk me over there because you know more about this than me? She says, Mr. Bandison, I can't leave my pod. Reported world. I said, I hear that. I got my book, got my wife's book. We're going to take a picture, and I'm going to show you the work we're going to do. This is going to be fun. The woman picks up the phone, calls the supervisor, says, I got to leave the pod. So now she walks me over to British Airways. They change my flight, get me back, and I'm on Phoenix, and I'm on my way. And the point of this is most people, when they run up into a report, they accept it as true. They just, oh, my God, we're going to have to sleep here, or we got to lay over, or, how many times.
Or they get mad at it first.
Or they get mad. Right? And you ever see people in the airport arguing? They
of
lose
course.
their mind. The nicest people in the world arguing because they just don't accept the report. When you when you can acknowledge a report, then you could create anything from it. Before I could afford first class tickets, you know how many first class seats I got without paying? Just because of this distinction. You know how many movie theaters said they were sold out, or shows that I got in before, because of reported created world.
Yeah.
So to me, it's a fun distinction to go out there and realize everyone who's telling you something is just a report. Acknowledge it and then create from it.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is how I not got you to come to the podcast. I'm like, Devon says he doesn't do podcasts. I'm going to ask him anyways. And this is what I told you. Like, I know you say you don't.
You acknowledge it.
Yeah. You don't do podcasts, but would you nonetheless come on? And
when you said it was, you created it so powerfully and beautifully, it was an automatic yes. I mean, your family anyway, and the way you did it was exactly that. You acknowledged it and created from it.
Right.
So those are some of my favorite distinctions because you can use them. The other thing, the last one I'll say is event action, right? The quicker you get into action after a thought or an event, the more powerful your creation was going to be. The biggest mistake, my man CD used to say this, the biggest mistake people make is putting too much unnecessary time between what they want to create and their beautiful ability to be able to create it. They overthink it. They want to process everything. Event action is another distinction.
I feel like an idea drops on a bunch of people. The idea needs to be materialized anyway.
Yep.
Right? It's going to come out. So if it's not going to be you, it's going to be someone else because it has nothing to do with you.
That's right. It moves through you.
It moves through. It's something bigger that needs to be created. So you have the opportunity or the chance to be the one who does it, or someone else is going to do it.
That's right. And most people want to wait. And I call it, I act at the mere whisper of God. So whenever something hits my spirit, I act like that's the whisper of God. I'm going to act on that. If oh man, this person, I pick up the phone.
Even when it doesn't make sense.
Even when it don't make sense. Because I'm not scared to be messy and figure it out in the messiness. Most people want this finished product. Let me call when I have the right thing to say, or let me take the action. No, I'm willing to be in the messiness. And to me, that's the beauty of life. You create the best from the unknown.
Yeah. Devon, it was so nice having you here. I don't know how long we've been talking, but I feel like we've been talking for a while.
We got my man Baz doing his thing in the background, holding
I
it down.
know. This is the best studio in Manhattan.
Yes.
So thank you for being here. Is there anything you want to add or share?
Yeah. First of all, I want to share what an honor it is to be here in your presence and experience, from when I met you, all the beautiful things you're creating in the world and who you are.
Thank you.
So it's an honor to be here. And, to the audience, like, really, I love you. And a lot of people are going to say, well, how is this cat going to tell me he loved me? He don't even know me. And I really believe that, like, if people could go around hating people they don't know, I could go around loving people I don't know. And if we could, like, take a sense of love and consciousness and awareness out there to our families, to our community, you're going to see it really shift the consciousness of the world. So I'm grateful. If you need anything or I can help in any way, SarRA knows where to find me. And that's all I got.
Thank you, Devon.
Yeah.
Truly a pleasure having you here. Thank you, everyone, for watching, and we'll see you next episode.